His ambition made him to fight endless wars. It's what made him to embark into the continental system, which made his downfall inevitable by 1815. Lastly, the alliance of Europe against Napoleon finally contributed to his downfall. Napoleon in his military career was never defeated by a single power. The Battle of Waterloo, which took place in Belgium on June 18, 1815, marked the final defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte, who conquered much of Europe in the early 19th century. Default text a saga of Napoleon Bonaparte's rise and fall as the French emperor is not just a story of military genius and imperial ambition. It's a multifaceted narrative that intertwines the fate of a man with that of a nation and a continent. His life journey from a Corsican outsider to the master of Europe, followed by his dramatic downfall, encapsulates the Enlightenment's ideals, the tumult of the French Revolution, and the complexities of leadership and power. Napoleon Bonaparte was the first emperor of France and one of the world's most significant military leaders, but at a price. He conquered much of Europe in the early 19th century, enjoying many campaign successes, but also suffering several spectacular defeats. Among his accomplishments was the introduction of the Napoleonic Code, which continues to form the foundation of French civil law to this day. Shrewd and calculating, Napoleon was also ruthless in his ambition and responsible for atrocities committed by French troops on the battlefield and across an overseas colonial empire extending from the Americas to Africa. Born into a family of minor nobility, Napoleon's early education at military academies in France was marked by his Corsican accent and modest means, making him an outsider among his peers. However, his intellectual prowess and determination propelled him through the ranks, with his first major public recognition coming from his defense of the French government from royalist insurgents in 1795. Napoleon's Italian campaign as a young general revolutionized military strategy with rapid maneuvers, forced marches, and the integration of artillery, securing his reputation as an unparalleled military tactician. The Egyptian expedition that followed, albeit less successful militarily, was significant for its scientific and cultural explorations, further enhancing Napoleon's image as a promoter of the Enlightenment. Upon seizing power in the coup of 18 Brumaire, Napoleon embarked on a transformative agenda. He stabilized the French economy, created the Bank of France, and instituted the Napoleonic Code, reforms that laid the foundations for modern French administration and law. His acumen for governance was matched by his ambition, which led him to crown himself emperor in 1804, signifying a new era for France and Europe. At the height of his power, Napoleon's empire encompassed much of continental Europe. Through a combination of military conquests and strategic alliances, he reshaped the European map, installing relatives and loyalists as rulers of client states. The Napoleonic Code was exported across the continent, influencing legal systems beyond France. Britain remained Napoleon's unconquerable foe, defying his attempts to dominate Europe completely. The continental system, aimed at crippling Britain's economy through a trade blockade, ultimately backfired, straining Napoleon's relations with Russia and contributing to the erosion of his power. The invasion of Russia in 1812 was a pivotal moment in Napoleon's decline. The harrowing retreat from Moscow, marked by extreme cold and starvation, decimated his grander army and emboldened his enemies. The Sixth Coalition's victory over Napoleon and the subsequent Treaty of Fontainebleau in 1814 resulted in his first abdication and exile to Elba. However, Napoleon's escape and return to power in 1815 for the 100 Days underscored his enduring hold on the French imagination. The Battle of Waterloo and Napoleon's final exile to Saint Helena represent the culmination of his tumultuous career and the ultimate defeat of his ambitions for European dominance. These events are pivotal moments in Napoleonic history, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for France and Europe. Following his return to power during the 100 Days, Napoleon faced a coalition of European powers determined to overthrow him once and for all. The Battle of Waterloo, fought on June 18, 1815, near the town of Waterloo in present-day Belgium, was the climactic showdown between Napoleon's forces and the combined armies of the Seventh Coalition, led by the Duke of Wellington and Gebhard Leprecht von Biel-Scheer. Napoleon's plan at Waterloo was to defeat the British and Prussian armies separately before they could unite. Initially engaging the British forces under Wellington at the center of the battlefield, Napoleon hoped to pin them down while Marshal Ney attacked the Prussian army to the east. However, delays and miscommunications hampered Ney's assault, giving the Prussians crucial time to reinforce Wellington's position. The battle raged throughout the day, with both sides sustaining heavy casualties. Despite early successes by the French, including the capture of the strategic farmhouse of La Haye-Sainte, Wellington's disciplined troops held their ground, bolstered by the arrival of Prussian reinforcements. The timely intervention of the Prussian army under Biel-Scheer's command turned the tide of the battle in favor of the Allies. As the day wore on, Napoleon's position became increasingly precarious, with the arrival of fresh Prussian troops threatening his flank, and his own forces exhausted and depleted. Napoleon recognized the futility of further resistance. He ordered a retreat, marking the end of the Battle of Waterloo and sealing his final defeat. Following his defeat at Waterloo, Napoleon returned to Paris, where he abdicated the throne for the second and final time on June 22, 1815. With the Allies closing in on the city, Napoleon sought refuge in hopes of negotiating favorable surrender terms. However, the Allies were determined to remove him from power permanently. In July 1815, the victorious Allies decided on Napoleon's fate. Rather than risk his escape or rallying support for another comeback, they chose to exile him to the remote island of Saint Helena in the South Atlantic, thousands of miles from Europe. The decision to exile Napoleon to such a remote and isolated location was intended to prevent any possibility of further political intrigue or military adventurism. Napoleon spent his remaining years on Saint Helena under strict British supervision. Initially confined to Longwood House, a dilapidated residence on the island, Napoleon's living conditions were harsh and his movements restricted. Despite his isolation, Napoleon remained intellectually active, dictating his memoirs, engaging in discussions with his companions, and reflecting on his life and legacy. Napoleon died on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51, after years of declining health. His death marked the end of an era in European history and the final chapter of his remarkable life. Despite his ignominious end, Napoleon's legacy endures, inspiring debate and fascination to this day. His military prowess, administrative reforms, and cultural impact have left an indelible mark on the world, shaping the course of history and influencing subsequent generations of leaders and thinkers.